Am I the butthole for telling my wife that our kids don't owe us anything? So basically during dinner, the subject of kids came up, can't remember why, and basically all three of our kids don't want bio kids. And our eldest is kind of neutral on the topic of kids and says it's up to his future partner whether or not he adopts. This has really upset my wife. She says that every parent looks forward to the day they get to become a grandparent. I told her that if any of our kids adopted she would still be a grandma. She got upset and said it's not the same. I told her that they are still kids, 17 male, 15 female, 13 female, and that their opinions could change. During this convocation, I said something along the lines of also they don't owe you or me anything, it's their bodies. This pissed off my wife and she started yelling that there's nothing wrong with her wanting and hoping for real grandkids. To me it doesn't really matter if they have kids or not. I would love to be a grandparent but that's not my decision. Also, they're still kids, them having children is a long way away and their opinions may change as they grow. However, I feel like I could have handled the situation so much better and that what I said was hurtful, so am I the butthole? Not the butthole. Holy cow at your wife though. Hasn't finished rearing her own children and is fretting about grandchildren? And the whole real grandchildren thing is gross. I think you handled it perfectly if you were calm and civil. You are also correct. Your children are in charge of their bodies and reproduction choices. Right, she has progeny to focus that stray grandbaby fever on, she should do that. Not the butthole original poster. Also, fun thought for your children are a luxury now, bio and especially adopted. We, millennials and younger, are no longer operating under the assumption that we can work 40+ hours a week to afford rent, a home, or any kind of wedding or partnership ceremony, let alone kids, and most of us don't want to have to deal with kids at all under the current assumption that most of us are going to have to work ourselves silly until we die. Edit. I'm humbled my usually unpopular opinion on this subject has garnered such awards. Thank you. Not to mention the fact that large swaths of the planet may be uninhabitable by the time our kids hit middle age. Yet this is why I, a 28-year-old woman who is married and wants kids, am very unsure about having kids. Terrified to bring kids into a world where I know we are likely heading off the climate change cliff. Same sis. The baby fever is real, but also so is climate change and the whole death lurks in every corner because we're still in a Panasonic, smiley face, crying face. Not the butthole. Why she wasn't grandchildren already? Ugh, I have 2 small babies and 1 big baby and I'm worried for them so much. Their future is even scarier to think of than our present at times. I love them and will do my best but I wonder if I should have decided against having them at all. The heartbreak and other awful crap they could go through just for being born. Terrifying. I feel this very deeply. As a HS teacher, I can say that it seems the next generation is heading towards positive change. They tend to actually, understand that climate change isn't an opinion but fact. I have true hope that as the boomers finish out their years in charge we're moving in the right direction. Also, not the butthole and way to support your kids' bodily autonomy. Problem is that it may be too late by the time the boomers are out and the next generation are in. Pretty sure it's already too late and all that's left to determine is how effed we're going to be. There's a very slim window still where it's possible to avoid total catastrophe. Things can't get back to where they were and it'll take massively aggressive action worldwide very quickly, but there is still a chance. It's hard to call it likely the way certain nations are operating but it's not completely out of the question. Did some research on this in college. Same. 28F with the man I'm going to marry and the thought of having children terrifies me. I've stopped voicing this because I can't stand the oh my god, you have to at least have 1 child. I don't have to do crap. Have you thought of adoption, in that case? You get the kids without having actively brought them into the world yourself. Adoption sadly is not easy and very expensive. I know couples that have been on waiting lists for years and there's no guarantee that even if you get to the point of actually adopting the bio mom could change her mind. People throw this just adopt around like it's still the Victorian ages and you just have to walk into an orphanage and pick out a child you like. There are more people looking to adopt than children given up for adoption, at least when it comes to healthy children under 6. It usually takes years, Costs a ton of money and many people don't even qualify in the first place. Yes, agreed. I think people watch too many movies and think there's still orphanages with Oliver Twist just waiting for you to swing by and pick up on your way home from work or something. Yeah, last time I tried to do that I was arrested for kidnapping, so I wouldn't recommend it. Babies aren't the only adoptable children, but I get it. True, but it's still a broken system. The systems that adopt out newborns and the system that adopts out toddlers and up are entirely different. And it being broken isn't a reason not to adopt. Kids who are actually in the system, rather than found through private agencies who work with pregnant women, who don't want the child, are much more vulnerable and much more available. It's not even close to as expensive as adopting a baby, either. I guess I don't see how saying it's still a broken system disqualifies adopting them. Don't get me wrong, adoption, especially of not babies, isn't for everyone, but that's not because the system is broken. Prospective parents aren't the ones being hurt by the broken system for the non-babies. That's why my parents waited until they were financially stable until they adopted me 42 years ago. My mama had endometriosis bad. She couldn't even conceive if she tried. My pops was going for his PhD and mama was working making a whopping $3,900 a year when she first started teaching. Both retired teachers making over 45+ K a year, 30+ years of teaching under their belts, and they retired early. People nowadays don't plan right for kids. That's one reason why I am child-free. Hell, I was 18 when I straight up told them they aren't getting grandkids. They are perfectly happy having 2 grandkids. They spoil my girls rotten. People can't plan right for kids when they have combined $400K in student loans and minimum wage hasn't moved in decades. If you look at any measure, the cost of living /houses /having children /retirement in ratio to wages was a million times better 40 or 50 years ago. I can't understand women my age. So many just got pregnant, because some relative told them it's a woman's duty to have children. They never thought about finances, the future, our school system. Even though universities in my country are free, you still have to pay for books and per semester, something like $250. I'm so glad that my parents are okay, and I dare to say proud for me to be child-free. Even if I had the money and a lovely partner, I would not want children. I can't even take care of myself properly. I agree with you, but I do want to say that many people in the US are unaware of how relatively cheap adopting from foster care can be. In most states, you don't necessarily need to foster before adopting in order to adopt kids in foster care. Of course, kids available for adoption are likely to be older and, maybe, have disabilities. I worry some people look at the high costs of agency adoption and give up on the prospect without looking into foster adoption. At the very least, it's worth a Google. Same. All I've ever wanted in life is to be a mom. But knowing we've already passed the point of no return with climate change just makes it seem pointless. Why bring someone into the world knowing they'll just end up suffering? If it makes you feel any better, our ancestors handled the global deep freeze while wearing animal skins and hunting with Stone Age tools. They were also lucky to live to 40. Oh my God, yes, I'm terrified of the thought of bringing a child into this world in its current climatic and economic state, hoping to work in conservation once I've finished studying to do my bit to help, but I also want kids one day, and while adopting/fostering is a great and noble option, I also would like to experience pregnancy at least once, though if it doesn't happen then I'm okay with that. It also sounds like an intense experience. And the current climate situation is all because of idiots who think people like Trump are good people, and even those against such idiocy and power aren't doing enough. Same. 24 and think the same thing. It hurts. I want kids bad. But I'm thinking I may just adopt an older kid and maybe a baby eventually if I really want children and won't be happy without. They are already here, so they as well get loved and cared for and given the best chance they can get. Same. There was a time I wanted 2 to 3 kids, and now, with my current boyfriend, we both are pretty on the fence about having any at all, considering we are 25 and can barely feed, house, and clothe ourselves. I think at any time and in any year, many parents-to-be were scared to have kids in this world that clearly is going to bad. Can you imagine wanting kids and living in a war/famine/economic crisis/pandemic? You don't see any perspective for them either. I believe fear of the future shouldn't be a reason not to have kids if that is what you want, because you just don't know what will happen. It seems that the future has always turned out better than the past, in general as evolution, technology and health improves. Also, adoption might then be a more suitable option, as the kid is already in this world and needs a loving home. Well, the adoption process is really straining, so it is not a light decision to take, but an option. Except all of those are reversible. End war/increased technology leading to increased food production/improving economies/vaccines, and we're heading to a point where climate change is not. I'm 16 meters, and I'd want kids, in more than a few years, but bringing them into this world isn't something I want to do. I had one kid very young, but this is a major factor in why I didn't want more. I can't imagine having them now looking at that cliff we're all running toward. I literally brought this up with my daughter, asking her to think really hard about having kids because the possibility of a crappy future is real with climate change and the political situations around the world. I doubt she listened, but at least I made her aware. And the weather will most likely be catastrophic. And that's not even getting into all the political tensions about to boil over. Seriously, how many stories appear on this sub about parents freaking out over having grandkids and whether or not they are biologically related? I see so many where grandparents unabashedly treat bio-grandkids different from step-grandkids and adopted grandkids. I will never understand that. It is so ugly and unnecessary. These people act like they're from Game of Thrones where the bloodline must remain pure. Like, grow up for God's sake. I hope they only give her fake grandchildren that are so realistic it takes her years to realize they are fake. It was while she breathed her last breaths that Mima learned her favorite grandson, to whom she'd left all her wealth, was actually the neighbor boy, best friend to the much-loathed step-grandson who, in turn, proved to have been from the womb of Janet, Mima's disappointing lesbian of a daughter. And all but Mima, who died with a curse on her lips and understanding of this trickery in her eyes, lived happily ever after. Not the butthole. As someone who's adopted and loves her grandparents very much, your wife can go F herself for the real grandchildren comment. Very gross. Real grandchildren, I hope she changes her tune if/when her kids do adopt. As an adopted child myself, I agree the wife's real grandchildren thing is really gross. Original poster, not the butthole, but your wife is. I suspect her aggressive attitude about wanting grandkids is probably the reason her kids say they don't want any. Sounds like something a teenager would do. Not the butthole, your wife is a butthole for calling adopted kids not real. As someone who was adopted, I heard this a lot. Sorry about that. It happened to my late husband as well. At his mother's funeral, I heard an aunt say they were the only blood family she had. Glad he didn't overhear that. Yeah, holy crap. I've always been able to ignore it, but yeah, I'd be throwing a chair if I heard that in that context. You should have replied good thing, since clearly the blood family is crafty. I never got people who were completely enamored with their own DNA like it was special or something. I love my family draft, but the gene pool gets a little shallow in spots. I'm sorry to hear that. My favorite relatives are adopted. And I was a teenager before I realized my aunt was adopted. Same here. Adopted and heard that. My daughter, 23 female, is not adopted, but always tells me she would rather adopt than have biological children. I have friends that she wanted nothing more than to have kids. She had all the tests done and everything was normal. Her husband wouldn't go and get the simple test of his sperm. During a discussion of kids, adoption was brought up. Her husband said, "I don't want someone else's problem." Disgusting. Someone's marriage is on the rocks over that. Someone's marriage should be on the rocks over that. Yikes. It could be as simple as slow swimmers, ew, could suffice. But no, masculinity. I accidentally found out last year, at the age of 27, that my parents used a sperm donor to have me. Do you think that means I'm half real? Thoughtful face. I like to ask people like this if their spouses are their real family, and when they say yes, I ask how they're related. It's fun, they get flustered. Same, my grandmother thought of me as second rate to my cousins because I was adopted and they weren't. Yep. She is allowed to be privately disappointed if she never gets to be a grandmother. Her attitude on adopted kids is pretty gross, though. Her attitude on adopted kids is only going to ensure that if her kids do adopt, she won't be meeting the grandbabies. I agree. We adopted our daughter, and I will have choice words to say to anyone who tries to tell me that she's not my real daughter. Reminds me of a story that always makes me chuckle. When I was in college, I had a professor I really liked, Professor Roberts. Professor Roberts and his wife had 2 children. They were white and their children, adopted from a Caribbean island, were black. This adoption took place in the 70s when international and different race adoptions were extremely uncommon. Many times Professor Roberts would be out with his family and they would get stopped by randoms who would say, "Oh, are those your real kids?" Fed up with people's rudeness and ignorance, he'd just blithely say, "Nope, they're my fake kids," and continue on his way. Even his own kids got in on the joke eventually because people were so damn obtuse. Seriously. My dad was adopted, my uncle was adopted. It may have been for weird reasons, but my grandparents never said, "Here's our real daughter and our adopted sons." They said, "Here are our kids." Jesus Christ. Right? How screwed up. My boyfriend is raising my toddler as his own after 40 years of not wanting kids. He has been there since pregnancy, and his mom was just lamenting to me that she has no grandkids, pouting face. Not the butthole. None of your kids are old enough to start giving her grandchildren, but she's pitching a temper tantrum over this? She needs a hobby, or the empty nest bit is going to be torture for everyone, and she's already trying to drive her kids away. According to original poster, the eldest 2 are also gay, so bio kids is less likely in their case, and the youngest is 13, so that's even worse. Exactly. She is probably focused on competing with some actual grandmother. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe to be the first to know about Red Rabbit Reader's new videos. If you like our videos, please like them on YouTube and share them with your friends. We welcome your comments below. Press to start another of our videos.